This is Time Signatures with Jim Ervin, a podcast and radio program presented by the Capital Area Blues Society in Lansing, Michigan.
Driving up and down these Michigan roads, yeah.
And now, here he is, your host, Jim Ervin.
Baby, I'm home.
Well, thank you so much, Parker, and welcome to Time Signatures. I'm your host, Jim Ervin, and as y'all have come to expect from me on this podcast, we are pleased to welcome yet another of the biggest names in the blues to our show today. Traditional blues, it has been said, is born out of struggles, poverty, loss, sadness. It's all part of the blues genre, and this artist knows all of these on a close personal level. Beginning at the age of only 7, this Tyler, Texas native started singing and playing drums at his church, and he was off to the races and on his way. Sadly, his mother, who struggled to raise 3 boys on her own, was diagnosed with cancer and passed away, leaving the boys to be raised by their grandmother. As an adult, our guest served in the United States Marine Corps for 10 years. He is a Grammy-nominated singer and songwriter, the 2019 and 2020 Soul Blues Male Artist of the Year and B.B. King Entertainer of the Year. He also has won the 2022 BMA for Soul Blues Album of the Year. His new album, Human Decency, is looking to be another big one for our guest, 40 Below recording artist Sugaray Rayford. Welcome to Time Signatures. How are you?
I'm good, brother. Thank you for having me here, and thank you for taking the time. I truly appreciate it. How to all your fans out there?
Well, we are certainly happy to have you here, and we're going to kick right off and get things rolling. But I want to begin, Sugar, with thanking you from the bottom of my heart for your 10 years of service in the United States Marine Corps. Well done, sir. You have my deepest appreciation.
You do what you can. It's weird. I always tell people, I didn't join out of some great patriotic thing. A lot of my family has served. I just remember being
Yes, sir.
Getting ready to turn 18 years old with no prospects. And I figured, I was like, well, at least if I joined the military, and I knew I was going to be the Marine Corps because most of my family has been Marine Corps, a couple Army, and maybe 1 Navy. But I was like, at least I knew I'd get 3 hots and a cot and a chance to get out of the country and go see something. And once I actually got there, I enjoyed the Marine Corps. So I stayed until my son was born. And that was the reason I got out. But yeah, I'm
Awesome.
proud to have served, and it's proud to be a veteran.
Excellent. Thank you again. I want to kick things off by kind of going back into the past just a little bit. What are your earliest memories of music as you were coming up?
Oh, it's always gospel, as you said. I started 5, 6, 7 years old. But the biggest one was my mother. Man, my mother was like, people always say that, but my mother was like one of the greatest singers in the world. And through the revelations of years, I learned before my grandmother passed and a few others that one of the reasons that she left Tyler and moved to Dallas was to try to pursue her singing career. Along the way, she wound up having 3 kids, and that kind of throws a wrench in everything. But you want to talk about that someone that could sing. She always inspired me. And then all the years of gospel and getting to seeing people, work with people like the Mighty Clouds of Joy, the Jackson Southern Airs, and get to seeing people like Shirley Caesar and these people up close, the Hawkins singers, work with Dr. Matty Moss Clark, a few others, it was just an amazing thing. Yeah. And I loved the music. And I was in church literally 7 days a week, either dealing with choirs or at one point being a young deacon, and they were trying to make me into a preacher, but I never wanted to be a preacher. I like the girls too much. But I was it just struck me, the whole wasn't even just the music, it was the camaraderie, the feeling of accomplishment when you had a great show or just feeling like being blessed. So those are my earliest days. So I started with the Sunshine Band at the old Bethel Temple Church of God in Christ. Let me say this real quick.
Yeah.
Bethel Temple was the oldest Church of God in Christ in Texas. It was hundreds of years old. I think it was the first Church of God in Christ in Texas. And they used to be on Front Street there in Tyler, Texas, which is the amazing thing for many, 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 many years on the Bishop S.D. Lee Sr. So I came up on the Bishop S.D. Lee Sr. from the beginning.
Very cool. Very cool. Now, I want to talk to you about your diving into the music industry and starting to get things rolling. Where did that journey begin for you? I know that you had your background in gospel, but when you started breaking out, how did that process evolve?
It was really strange because it really wasn't a coherent thing. It was more like, I was bouncing for a long time. I was a cooler, had a few clubs and bouncers working for me, and it was live music venues. And, I enjoyed watching the guy, believe it or not, I enjoyed watching the guys set up. I enjoyed watching them play and watching people's reaction to it in between me having to throw people out or deal with other things. But it was amazing. And I had met my now wife at that time, just acquaintance. I had met her daughter before her daughter and some friends. And then one night she came in, and one of the nights that she came, for some reason, the band that was up there singing, for some reason the singer, I don't know what happened. I walked by the stage and they gave me the mic, and I said this a million times that it doesn't matter where I know the words or not. A melody is a melody is a melody. And I had many years of training, so I just made up something, had fun with it, and people were kind of shocked because they were just like, "What the heck? You're the bouncer. You're not supposed to be able to sing and perform." And Pam, my wife at that time, my friend, she was just like, "You should do this." And I was like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "You lit up the room, your entire soul lit up. You could see it, and you were put on this earth to do this." And I remember saying, like, "Yeah, that's fun, but you can't make a living. I got a child to feed and a home and all this sort of thing." So that was the beginning. And from there to the Urban Gypsies a few months later, and my first show was a big corporate show for Coca-Cola. That was my very first show, was a corporate show for Coca-Cola. I was in a
wow
top 40 cover band, the Urban Gypsies, and when that did really, really well in the San Diego area and playing at the Belly Up. We opened for Parliament. We opened for Venice. We opened for Dennis Quaid and the Sharks and a few others, and I loved it. I mean, I was like, man, this is great, and at that time I was still bouncing, and I had the ranch and the avocado ranch and all that. And I remember Pam saying, you got to make up your mind, are you going to do this or is it just a hobby? And I was like, you know what? I'm willing to give it a shot. And she was like, well, I got your back. Let's do it. And so did that for a while. But then I realized the guys that were playing with me, they were happy with just doing the cover stuff. And, a lot of them were big name guys, and they've been in the music for a long time. James East, the brother of Nathan East from Clapton, Michael Mose, who used to be with Parliament, Martin Greaves from Mad Dogs and the Englishmen, and Charlie George from Verdi Bird and all that. So all these major guys, Monette Marino, and her father one time took Pam and I to lunch. And he wanted to tell me, like, you could do this. You should really start doing your own music and go out there and push. And I was like, well, I love the blues. I said, it's the closest thing to gospel. He said, you should give this a shot. And Jim Marino was one of the original Ink Spots. So every once in a while he would come sit in and play with us. So it's been weird. Yeah. It's been weird. My whole career has been surrounded by people that I knew but didn't know who they were. And they always encouraged me and pushed me. And so that's how I wound up leaving my own band and joining the Unkinsey's Boys and coming into the blues world. Well,
very cool.
With both all swinging.
Now, I want to step back for just half a second here and talk about your biggest influences, musically speaking, when you got involved and started developing as a blues player. Talk about that for a minute.
There was a great band that used to, Wednesday nights at the club was our, I guess you would call it like our audition night. So on Wednesday nights, it would just be a bartender, myself, and the auditioning bands. They audition to come in and play so they can play for the weekend. Across the street, this is in Carlsbad, California, and I was the cooler over at Boris Crossing, but across the street was this great little club. And I won't call it a blues club, but every Wednesday night they had blues bands coming in. It was called The Alley, right there in downtown Carlsbad, right across the tracks from me. I could stand out front and listen to it. And Wednesday nights, man, that place would be packed. People up in there hucking, bucking, getting their groove on, and they had a big bay window up front. And so you stand in the bay window, you're looking at the back of the band. And there was this great band that played almost every Wednesday night called Runny Lane and the Texas Twisters. And I would just go over there because what I was hearing, even though I couldn't hear the words, what I was hearing sounded like gospel music to me. I always remember that it sounded like gospel to me. So since Wednesdays were slow, sometimes I ease across the street and stand in the window and check it out. And the bass player, and that's sad, I can't remember his name now. I think it was Tom. He used to see me sitting there, and they were like, come on in and sing. And I'm like, man, I got to work, I'm like, And so finally, Pam again intervened, and she's like, you should go in there one of these nights and sit in. So I had a Wednesday night one night off, and I went in there, and I didn't know the words to any of the blues songs. I was just in there making up stuff, but I love the camaraderie. I love the feeling of the music. It reminded me of gospel, but it wasn't gospel, so I didn't feel like I was crossing the fence or anything. And next thing I know, Tim Cash, that's his name, Tim Cash. Tim going to end up giving me a paperback book that had like 1,000 blues songs in it. It had the words and the music. I wish I still had it. And I used to go home and digest that thing and blah, 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 blah. And then my wife would go and pick blues songs she liked, and she'd go buy the albums. And at that time, it was cassettes. She'd buy the cassettes. And then on Wednesday nights, we'd go up there and we'd sit in the car, and I would learn a blues song, a B.B. King song or somebody, learn it in the car, run in there. If those guys knew it, we'd play it and I'd sing it. And that was the beginning.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Now, you left the Urban Gypsies and you found a new home with Aunt Kizzy's Boys, a Temecula area blues band. So would it be safe to say that all through the AKB that you found your place in the blues, and talk about that second place finish at the 2006 IBC while you were with them?
Well, I did. That band, man, they were already like an 8-9-piece band when I joined. So they were already a band. So what wound up happening is I've now left the Urban Gypsies because I wanted more. I wanted to write. I wanted to go in more into the blues world than so much the soul world at that time. And so Pam found a jam in Temecula. We were living in Fallbrook. We had a 5-6 acre avocado ranch at the time. So I was an avocado rancher. And she found this jam in Temecula, and as Pam always done, she signed me up, and like we're going out somewhere, and I would never know. I get there, and the next thing I know, somebody would call my name. And by this time, people in San Diego knew who I was because the Urban Gypsy Band was one of the top corporate bands there.
Sure.
And they saw us play at the Belly Up and a bunch of the name venues at the time, San Diego. But in the blues world, nobody knew me from Adam. So I went to this little, I can't remember the name of the club. I went to this little club to sit in. They had gotten a reputation of having a great jam. And so I went in there to sit in, and I'm very high energy, and I'm shaking it and I'm singing and I'm having a good time. And a lot of people usually can't keep up, but this drummer that was playing that night, that guy was amazing. His name was Dwayne Hathorn. And I was just like, man, this guy got my energy on the drums. You know, he plays like the guys I grew up with in church and blah, 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 blah. And unbeknownst to me, after that we did a few songs, that night, Dwayne called his guitarist, Jimmy King, and said, hey, man, I found this guy named Sugar. You got to check this guy out. So I go back the next week, and then Jimmy King, the guitarist from Aunt Kizzy's Boys, is there, and Dwayne. And we have a rip-roaring time, and, you know, I'm only supposed to do one song, but I think they wind up letting me play for like 45, 50 minutes, and my repertoire isn't that big, but I'm just having fun. The next thing I know, literally probably a week later, I get a call from those guys. They were doing a big show up in Idlewild, the Idlewild Jazz Festival. And they were like, you know, they had another brother that was the lead singer on keyboards. And they like, we want you to come in and sit in. I'm like, man, I didn't want to cause any problems, man. I was enjoying myself. They're like, no problem. Come sit in and blah, blah. Well, I was nervous as all get out because there's all these black people here. And I hadn't sang and like, you know, I hadn't done blues, you know, gospel, and I was really nervous about getting up because, you know, black folks gonna tell you, you know, white folks are kind of, they won't say very much. They just keep it on the breath. Black folks gonna come up and tell you whether you should be doing this or not doing this. So it's kind of nerve-wracking to perform in front of the brothers and sisters. But it went over well. And the next thing I know, probably a week or so after that, they wound up reforming the band and getting rid of the other guy and a couple other people, and asked me to join that band. And from there, we just started running, man. And we were, at one point, we were doing probably 150, 160 shows a year, playing all the casinos. I mean, just crazy amount of gigs. And we wind up winning the RBC, which was the Rhythm and Blues Challenge in LA for a bunch of soul bands, but we got invited. And we went up there and did our thing. And we actually won the Lamb Jam, the Los Angeles Music Network, blah, blah, blah. You know, people there from Arista Records, Enterprise, all these big labels, big main labels at the time. And they, all the A&R people, and they voted us as the winner. And we wound up getting a distribution deal from RBC Records. And nothing ever really came of it, you know, but we wound up getting a distribution deal from them off the spot. Later, we found out about the IBC and the whole challenge thing. And so we had people in Temecula, Fallbrook, and northern San Diego County saying, you know, you guys should go down to San Diego, the San Diego Blues Lovers United, and get into this challenge. And if you win, you know, you go to Memphis and blah, 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 blah. And now all this is new to me because I literally only been doing blues now for about a year and a half. So next thing I know, we win the Blues Lovers United San Diego challenge. We win that thing by landslide. And the next thing I know, we're in Memphis for the International Blues Challenge. So now all of a sudden I'm in Memphis. Last time I had been in Memphis had been probably 25 years. I used to be there every year for the national convocation for the Church of God of Christ. That's where they hold it.
Okay.
And I'm like, this is a whole different thing there because this is blues, this ain't gospel. And we're running around Memphis and everything. And we're doing all it's like a week-long process, there's bands from all over the world. And you play like 2 or 3 venues and you get voted and you move on to the next venue. Next thing we know, we're in the finals. And we're at the New Daisy Theater in Memphis. And we just go in there and with no plans or nothing, we just go in there and be ourselves. And we go in there and we destroy the thing. There was a lot of controversy. I think we were beat out by a gentleman by the name of Joey Gilmore, but we found out later there was a lot of stuff that was going on behind the scenes. That Joey had won the year before, but then the second place winner brought up something that he had a record deal and he was disqualified. And you got to remember during this time, the blues thing had been on a lull. You know how the blues go, it get hot, then it get cold. So they hadn't had a lot of really, really great bands that had come through. So no one expected and Kizzy's boys. So they basically had already set it up that it's going to give Joey first place to replace it from his disqualification, and second place and blah, 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 blah. And then we showed up, which kind of threw a kink in everything. But we wound up getting second place. And I remember there was a big controversy because the Memphis Sun-Times ran a front page ad the next day, and it was like Joey Gilmore wins IBC with a question mark. There was a small picture of him and a big picture of us on the front page, and I was just like, "Oh crap!" I just came to do my thing, and that was the beginning of it. And from there, we started playing across the country and going to Europe and stuff like that. And even with Aunt Kizzy's, it finally got to a point where I realized again that I wanted more. I wanted to reach out bigger and everything. And also turmoil in life. We had sold the ranch. We now moving to Pam had closed a private practice, and we were now moving to LA. And that's kind of where everything just kind of blew up from there.
Well, you are watching and listening to Time Signatures. I'm your host, Jim Ervin, and I've got Sugaray Rayford coming to us live from all the way down in Texas. You can tell because he's wearing a cowboy hat. Oh, yeah, we're going to talk about that in just a couple of minutes. I promise you, absolutely going to be talking about that. We want to talk about 2011. You joined the Manish Boys. You won some recognition there. But it was really your move in 2013 where you launched out into your solo career, yeah?
Yeah, I never gave up on my own band. I formed my own band after leaving Aunt Kizzy's Boys. I formed the band. It was called Sugaray and the CK All-Stars, my buddy Chuck Cavoras. And, not to go too deep, but there was a lot of stuff that happened in there. I wound up running the top jam, pro jam in LA, which was a big deal. And so I would have the big guys, the Steve Lukather's, the Slashes, the Vivian Campbell's. It's also where I met Mike Finnegan. It's also where I met and became friends with Al Cooper and Honey Boy Edwards and so many other big name and people that was outside the blues, like Lifehouse and the Pussycat Dolls and a lot of stars and stuff started showing up there. And so one night I get a call from my good friend who just passed away a few years ago, the legendary Mr. Cal David. And I love Cal. He was always good people to me. I met him back when he still owned the blue guitar in Palm Springs. Anyway, I'm sitting there in LA. I get a call from Cal, said, "Hey man, me and Jim Ervin are playing over this place at the Maui Sugar Mill. Why don't you come through and sing a few songs?" I'm like, "All right, man, cool. I'll come through. I'm doing nothing anyway." And so I go through there, and it's Mr. Gatson and James Gatson and Nate Watts, and that was another thing too. And I'm sorry because I'm trying to put a lot of stuff in a short period of time.
You're doing great, man.
My first band in LA was called the Invitation All-Stars. Remember, I come out of the gospel world, military. I don't know anyone, so I just treat everyone like gold. And it wound up being the best thing for me because that's who I am. And so the Invitation All-Stars was Gerald Johnson, the original bass player for the Steve Miller Band, the brother with left-handed upside-down bass. He was on bass. The legendary James Gatson on the drums. And this guy named Adam Stark on guitar. It was a three-piece and me singing. And Adam Stark wound up being I think the vice president of Pixar, but this is way before that.
Okay.
we were playing small venues around LA, and it was weird because I would see all these movie stars and stuff that would be showing up, and I was like, well, I know they're not showing up for me. They don't know me from Adam. What's going on? And so this is before Google was big and before YouTube was big, and most of the stuff was Wikipedia. And so Pam went home and started looking up the guys we were playing with, and I was just kind of flabbergasted. I had no idea that I was playing with all these legendary guys. They were just righteous, down-to-earth people. And so because of all these different connections through the LA area, I ended up in the Valley Sugar Mill with Jimmy Vivino from the Tonight Show, from the Conan O'Brien Show to the Tonight Show. I think it was not Conan O'Brien Show. I think it was the Tonight Show. I can't remember. And Jimmy Vivino and Cal David and those great guys there. And then there was this little guy, I thought he was Australian, playing harmonica, who was really throwing down with us that night. Later on, I remember standing outside with Cal David, and Cal was laughing at me because he was like, you have no idea who that is on harmonica, right? And I'm like, no. I said, but he's a pretty good player. He's all right. I'm not the biggest harmonica fan, but this guy, I said, he knew not when to play and when to play and blah, blah, blah. And Cal's just laughing his butt off. Come to find out, and I'm like, why are you laughing at me, Cal? Because I knew I done stepped in it again. And come to find out, the harmonica player was John Mayall. So that night it was me, John Mayall, Cal David, Jimmy Vivino, Nate Watts, James Gatson. Unbeknownst to me, Randy Sharkoff, the president of Delta Groove Records, who had already been a judge for me in IBC the year or so before, he was there that night. 3 nights later, I get a call from my producer at the time, Chuck Avoris, which is why we always called the band Sugaray and the CK All-Stars. Chuck called me and said, hey, man, I got this call from this Randy Sharkoff guy from Delta Groove. One of his singers, a guy named Bobby Jones, has left the band and moved to Vegas, and they're reviewed, and they got this big show in Spain, and he saw you the other night. He wants you to come, want to review, come and sing and learn these songs, and you're leaving in 48 hours. So I was like, well, man, I got nothing that's going on. This is cool. I talked to Pam, like, before I could even say anything, she had told me, like, yeah, he'll do it. And next thing I know, I'm on a plane trying to learn songs, and there's video out there. I land in Honduras, Spain. We do like a little hotel room, in the hotel room rehearsal. No real instrument, just going over songs. And find out later that it wasn't even really the Managed Boys. It was Kid Ramos, Willie J. Campbell. Jimmy Bott wasn't there. It was J.R. Lozano on the drums and Sean Pittman instead of his regular. But I remember walking out and the legendary Mr. Finest Tabsley, and I'm the opening guy. So I remember walking out on the stage, 90,000 people. That's the longest crowd I had ever played to. There's video of it. 90,000 people. I'm playing with a band that I never even rehearsed with. I don't know these guys. and but I was like, you know what? I'm here now. I may as well just be myself and do what I can do. And so I had fun with it, enjoyed it, threw down, great show. On the flight back, Randy Sharkoff asked me if I wanted to join the Managed Boys. I didn't know who the Managed Boys were from Adam at that time. Sure. And so I wound up joining the Managed Boys. And with a short period of time, I wound up being the closing act, but Finest opening for me. And it really circumvented many years of me in the blues world because the Managed Boys had such a name. They only played big festivals that all of a sudden, I come into the blues world and people knew who I was because all of a sudden there I was fronting the Managed Boys, this legendary band with all these legendary guys, Johnny Dyer and Leon Blue and Kid Ramos and Kirk Fletcher and Frank Goldwasser and Jimmy Bott, all these names. And that opened up everything for me. But in between that, I always kept my band going. Even though Randy was always trying to get me to get rid of my band, I just had an innate thing that I did not want to be, quote unquote, under somebody's thumb my entire career. I wanted to leave myself options. So I was still doing shows with my band. And so when Chuck finally convinced me to do my solo album, Blind Alley, we actually had like 15 original songs we was going to put on that album. But because I knew all these big rock guys that played with me on the Monday Night Jam, when they found out I was doing the album, they all wanted to play on my album. So I don't know if you ever go through the album Blind Alley. I don't think I have a copy in here with me, but if you ever go through that, you would see people like, there's a version of Death Letter on there. It's me and Brian Head, who at that time was the drummer of Foreigner, Tim Bogert from Bogert Beck a Piece from Vanilla Fudge is playing bass, me singing, and I forget who was playing guitar. There's some of the guys from Guns N' Roses like Slash and a few of those guys on some of the songs. Uh, Mr. Gatson is on the songs, Albino Bennett, all these big name rock and soul guys. So I think we wind up putting one original songs on there and wind up putting all these covers. So my first solo album wound up being an album that I didn't intend to make, but it came out the way it was. But it's like all these big name guys on this album. They all came in and played for free. They just wanted to play.
Wow.
J.T. Thomas from Three Dog Night, and blah, blah, blah. I can't remember everybody. It's been a long time. And so that was my first solo album.
Well, Sugar, I need to leap forward just a little bit here. The president of the Capital Area Blues Society, her name is Anita McDaniel, is a huge Sugaray Rayford fan. And when I told her that I was going to be interviewing you, I asked her, is there anything you would like to ask if you had an opportunity? And her question is this. As noted at the top of the show, you spent 10 years serving our country in the U.S. Marine Corps. How did that time in uniform influence your music?
Well, what it didn't influence my music so much. It's coming out more now because you get older, you start to think about it. Back then, though, the thing that it did influence to me and has still influenced is that this is business. So, I'm one of those people, I don't like to be on what they call colored people time. I like to be on time. I always tell the band, if you're on time, you're late. If you're on time, you could be here 10 minutes early because you never know what's going to happen.
Yes, sir.
I don't like to fly in the day of shows. I like to be there the day before because I don't want to miss the opportunity or have it written somewhere that the guy was not dependable, didn't show up on time. So it reinforced that, but that was already in me from my grandmother. But the Marine Corps really helped reinforce that. Business-wise, it didn't do very much other than, like I said, I'm a man of my word. We show up on time. We play.
Yes, sir.
My stamina is crazy, and I'm gonna do what I said I'm gonna do. So that is the biggest thing that it influenced, I would say. Now,
okay,
years later on the 40 Below records, I've written about PTSD, Invisible Soldier, and some other things. You just get to that certain age where you get a big case of I don't give a damn what people think, and I'm gonna say what I got to say. But yeah, mostly it was like the strictness of like this is a business. It's called the music business. You sign a contract, it's very daunting. I don't think a lot of musicians know how bad it is that, once you get to a certain level, if people find out that they're actually dealing with the musician, they won't even talk to you because so many musicians have broken contracts, not done what they said, not done what they do. I run a pretty tight ship. I mean, let the guys enjoy themselves, but I don't like drinking on the stage. I don't like a bunch of drugs and all that stuff around me. This is business, and we're gonna have fun. After we get done, hell, I'll buy you a drink. I got a bottle. You want to smoke your weed, whatever, that's fine. But once we're on the stage, no. After we walk off stage, you're on your own. But what you're doing is, the other thing is, like I told the band, you're representing me. They're not gonna say Danny Avila or my drummer. They're gonna say Sugar's drummer, Sugar's guitar player did this, Sugar's
right.
But those are the only real influences I would say for us, the military wise.
Sugar, your voice has been compared to many of the greats, including Howlin' Wolf, Muddy Waters, and even Teddy Pendergrass, to name a few. Now, I get some of that, but personally, I also absolutely hear some strains of one of my favorite blues shouters, the legendary Larry McCray, in some of your music. Now, it's some of that Arkansas Deep South blues. Have you ever heard this comparison in the past?
I have not. I mean, I know some of the McCrays, and I and I love those guys. I had not, but I am a blues shouter. I could croon too, but I'm a blues shouter. But that comes from those years of gospel. A lot of times the old church, there was times I had 300 choir members, and as a director, you didn't have the microphone, but you had to be heard and seen, and helped in the Marine Corps too, because I used to call cadence for the battalion and the company, because my voice was big enough that I could stand out there in front of 400 guys and call cadence while we're marching or running. And but the comparisons are great. It's amazing. I go to Europe. People always say I remind them of Solomon Burke and all this other stuff, or Otis Redding. But I think one of the biggest compliments I ever got was one year in Memphis. Chester Burnett, Mr. Wolf, his daughters came up to me. And they told me, like, hey, we just wanted you to know you remind us of our daddy. And I thought that was like one of the biggest compliments that I ever had. Yeah. Yeah, I also got a compliment like that from Miss Bland and Rod Bland and the Bland family one time in Memphis doing a thing for Bobby Bland. They're like, you remind us of Robert. And Miss Bland was like, I mean, when people say stuff like that, that to me is like that is a badge of honor to me. I will take that
Oh,
to the
yeah.
grave.
Well, I'm going to tell you right now, when we get done, I'm going to make sure to get your address and I'm going to mail you a copy of Larry's new album, Blues Without You. And I want you to hear this guy's voice because there's some similarities and you got your own style, but
But
there's
Larry's a
definitely
buddy
some
of mine. I love
similarities.
that guy.
Yeah. Now, your new CD, Human Decency, has already received critical acclaim. The content of this album reminds me of a style very similar to that of Toronzo Cannon, who's, as you know, is very, very much about speaking his mind.
Yeah.
And as you touch on today's social political themes, but you do so with honesty and, as you say, with love in your heart. Talk about this album for a moment.
Well, with all this craziness going on, all this division, I've been saying it for a few years now. When I met Eric Corrin, I had just come off a world tour, and I was in Memphis, and I was getting ready to go, and I had been invited to come into the Orpheum Theater to play with Del Toro Richardson, and I remember standing on the corner in the suit and everything, but I was literally exhausted. I had just did 6 months world tour, and I'd been home for like 18 hours, landed in Memphis, met my wife, and so met Eric Corrin
Wow.
there. And I had just finished an album with the Daptones and the Italian Royal family in Italy called The World That We Live In. And most people, you may not know the Daptones, but they were Amy Winehouse's band. But before they were Amy Winehouse's band, they were Sharon Jones's band. And those guys were really, really nice, the bass player and whatnot. And through some collabs with him and Luca Sapio, we did The World We Live In. And I love that direction of what we were talking about. And like I said, like anything, you grow. And I finally had gotten to a stage in my life where I had things I wanted to say, and figuring out how to say them. But I say all that to say, all this division, we have lost in America. We used to have this thing of civility.
Yes, sir.
And
Yes, sir.
we have lost civility. And what I mean by that, and I tell people, you get 20 people together, no one's ever going to totally agree with anything. But we used to have the civility to sit down and listen to one another's arguments. That's what made America great. It was the sum of all the parts. For some reason, not some we know that it's corporate greed and people try to put it on racism and all this other stuff. And I always tell people, not that there isn't racism, but racism is just what it is ignorance. There's only one color in America, and that color is green. If you got green, it doesn't matter if you're black, purple, or you got 3 titties with a horn in your back. It doesn't matter. If you got green, you're in the in crowd. If you don't have green, you're not in the in crowd.
Right.
And they have definitely made sure that all the tribes keep fighting each other while they can keep putting their hand in the pot and do what they want to do. So
Yes, sir.
Since I've been with 40 Below, Eric Corn and our entire thought process has been, we want to uncover the things that are being done and said and bring it to the masses, but we had to do it in a way where you can't just give people vinegar. So we put the vinegar in sugar water, and the sugar water is great sounds and great rhythms and great, drum sounds and West Indies horns and all this great stuff. But if you stop and listen to what I'm singing about, it's very, very, very serious. And so Human Decency is the culmination of those years. This is the third album, and we're just not pulling any punches, but my thing is, I want to be able to tell you the truth the way I see it. But at the same time, I'm not trying to make division. I want you to know that, I see what's going on, but that really got nothing to do with you and I. Let's shake hands. Let's be 2 human beings, 2 Americans, 2 Europeans, whatever. We're just human beings, regardless of your color, your religion, or your political aspiration. We're still human beings. We still eat crap, poop, put our clothes on one leg at a time. So my whole goal is, I'm going to talk about the hypocrisy, but at the same time, I'm also the same guy that if you fell down, I'm gonna reach over and help you up, because beyond all the other crap, we're still human beings, and we've really lost stability in this country. I can't talk about other countries. I live in this country. I've served this country, and we have lost civility. That civility was something that we always had in this country. It didn't matter if you was from New York, California, Texas, Maine. You knew that people would be civil to you. You could have a discussion, not so much even an argument. You can have a discussion with someone who was Republican, this guy was Democrat, or that guy was independent, and you would leave that discussion usually with a chain of thought, like, okay, well, I understand where he's coming from now. I understand where I'm coming from now. I know why I believe what I believe. He believe, but that didn't mean anything. He may have been a Republican, he may have been a Democrat, but he was an American, and we've lost that. It's that kind of like the thing growing up with your family. Yeah, you can fight with your family all day long, but if somebody else outside your family fight them, then they got to fight us all, because that's civility, and we've lost that. We've really lost that.
Well, Sugar, it has been a whirlwind interview with you so far. Where can people go to find out more about you, maybe buy a CD or some merchandise, or most importantly, where can they go to book you?
Oh, man. I'm booked through Intrepid Artists International down in North Carolina. Those guys are great. Rick Booth and all those guys, Jake and all them. You can book me through that. You can go to my website at sugarrayrayford.com. One R, Sugaray, Rayford, Rayford.com. Same with the Facebook is at the Sugaray Rayford. Instagram is Sugaray Rayford. TikTok, Twitter, X, all that is all Sugaray Rayford. You can go pick that up, and it has all my dates and where I'm playing and what's going on. We have the new album comes out June the 14th, but you can pre-order it right now. This is the new album. I literally got it yesterday. It's one of the best looking albums I think I've ever done. I want to say a big thank you to Alex Walsh and Eric Korn. They did a great job with this. It's so warm and so beautiful inside and outside. So yeah, everything's at sugarrayrayford.com, and you can go find out where I'm playing. You can buy an album. You can also go to 40belowrecords.com. Eric Korn, I want to give him a big shout. He's such a wordsmith. He is so, I can talk to him and he comes up with these words, and it's exactly what I was trying to say. Some people just born to do that. I call him a wordsmith, and he's done a great job in crafting these songs for me to sing. So, and I want to say thank you to you and to all your listeners for allowing me to get up here and ramble on the way I have. So thank you very much.
Well, Sugaray Rayford, a huge thanks for being my guest today on Time Signatures, man. I wish you continued success, and we are genuinely hoping to get you into the state of Michigan soon. And to you, my viewers, my listeners, my followers and fans, thank you for being here, because without you, none of this would be possible. If you would like to be so kind, you make sure you go down below and click the subscribe and notify buttons so that you don't miss an episode. Jim Ervin reminding you that keeping the blues alive is everyone's responsibility, but preserving the history of the blues one story at a time, that's my mission. Until next time, so long.
God bless. Peace.
This has been Time Signatures with Jim Ervin, presented by the Capital Area Blues Society in Lansing, Michigan. For more information on cabs, visit capitalareablues.org. You can find this episode and past episodes at lccconnect.org. The Time Signatures theme song, Michigan Roads, is used by permission and was written by Root Doctor, featuring Freddie Cunningham.
You know I'm crying, baby, driving up and down these Michigan roads, yeah.
Until next time, keep on keeping the blues alive.